Ohio State has a rich history of elite running backs, and James Peoples is looking to be the next name on that list.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. During today's show, we'll discuss if Ohio State can have two lockdown corners, as well as what Arvel Reese must do during spring practice. But first, Ohio State has a rich history of elite running backs, and James Peoples is looking to be the next name on that list. As the thing about Ohio State's history as a football program, they've had some great quarterbacks over the past 20 years. They've had some great receivers over the history of the program. But running backs is one of those positions Ohio State has dominated. Go back and look at Archie Griffin. Go back and look at Keith Byers or Eddie George or J.K. Dobbins or Ezekiel Elliott or Mike Weber or fill-in-the-blank running back. They've had elite running backs. Travion Henderson is one of those guys that just continues the lineage of Ohio State having great running backs. And James Peoples knew it was going to be tough for him to get the RB1 title at Ohio State. He didn't shy away from that. He's tackling that head on. And also, I think he is not only having the chance to be a guy that can be elite at Ohio State, I think he's the next guy that has the opportunity to be an elite running back at Ohio State. And going into the fall, let's go into the spring first. He is going into spring practice with the mindset that this is my title right in front of me of being RB1. I just got to go over there and take it. I got to claim it. I can't let CJ Donaldson come in here and take what I believe is already mine. Well, it's not mine yet. In my mind, I'm telling myself, I got this. I have what it takes to be a starting running back at Ohio State. Despite not getting a lot of carries in my freshman season at Ohio State, that's not a problem. The two guys were in front of me. They were both 1,000-yard rushers this past season, so that's fine. If my job last year was to sit and learn and to soak up all I can, that's great. And moving forward, you can have that sit back and soak in all the stuff a year ago. That can't be your same mindset in spring practice. Remember the names I just mentioned. I didn't even go through over all the names we could have when talking about Ohio State's running backs over the past whatever years. Doesn't matter. Think about Carlos Hyde. I love watching that man tote the rock. Think about Trey Sermon and his phenomenal run that he had in the 2020 season. Now, he was only at Buckeye for a short period of time, but we all remember what Trey Sermon did in the playoff, in the Big Ten title, at the end of the regular season. What do we find? That Trey Sermon had elite traits, and he went on a phenomenal run. Well, James Peoples has all these guys that have worn the scarlet and gray before him. Just look at it and say, well, those guys had different characteristics about them. Those guys had different skill sets, but one thing remained the same. There was a toughness that they had. There was a mindset that they had that I have the ball, and you can't take the ball from me, and I'm going to do everything I can to continue to get more yards, fall forward, continue to be more elusive, to be more powerful than anything you throw at me so I can move the ball down the field. And I think this is going to help Julian Sayin, who I'm going to start saying is Ohio State starting quarterback in the fall, unless the Buckeyes go out and get a portal quarterback in the spring that can compete for the starting role. This role is Julian Sayin's already. I have a hard time believing, even though I know it's possible, I have a hard time believing that Lika Kienholz is going to take the steps forward over the next few weeks and months to propel himself so high that he is the front runner to be QB1. I have a hard time seeing that happen, and I know Kienholz is really talented. He's more athletic. He's physically taller. He's taller and bigger right now. Sayin's just different, man. Sayin's a special cat. And the fact that Sayin's here right now and he's still battling and he's already done things to show that he's maturing in the way that you want a young guy to mature to be QB1 for Ohio State, I got a hard time thinking that Kienholz is going to jump him. I know it's possible, but I got a hard time believing it's going to happen. I say that because I think Sayin and Peoples in their youth, they're going to be able to work hand in hand. They're going to be able to be pairs. And Sayin's going to need a running back to tote the rock at an elite level. at a rate that the opposition is going to be, I won't say fearful of him when he has the ball, but trying to scheme to stop him. People, that is, when Peoples has the ball. And when that's the case, that opens up so much for the quarterback. From Saying or whoever might be the Buckeye starting quarterback in the fall, that opens up so much. Because now the defensive coordinator has to realize, I got a game plan for Jeremiah Smith. I got a game plan for Cardinal Tate. I got a game plan for Julian Sand. I got a game plan for Max Clare. I got a game plan for James Peoples. And if CJ Donaldson's getting on a roll, I got a game plan for him too. I didn't count all those names. But that's at least 5 or 6 guys that opposing defensive coordinator has to game plan for. Now, let's go back to this past year. I guarantee there weren't a lot of defensive coordinators that were putting G. Scott Jr. in the top 5 guys on the team you got a scheme for. That's not saying he didn't play a big piece of the pie for Ohio State's offense. When it came to skill positions, you're scheming. You're trying to game plan for Smith, for Ibuka, for Henderson, for Judkins. You got a game plan for Will Howard. That's 5 guys right there. Then you might put a G. Scott Jr. Then you might put a Brandon Ennis. You're not putting him in the top 5. But when you have so many guys in this upcoming year that you have to game plan for, that's not a knock against G. Scott Jr. He just wasn't that lethal of a weapon that Ohio State went after all the time. Not a problem. It's just the kind of player that he was. And this upcoming year, if Peoples takes the steps forward, which are going to be massive steps, and steps where he is getting better in pass pro at a rate that most guys don't get to in year number 2. He is taking steps forward in year 2 with ball security that sometimes plagues some young running backs. He's taking massive steps forward in his vision, which sometimes in a 4 or 5 year career, some college football running backs never get the vision that you saw a year ago from Judkins and Henderson. If he takes these massive steps forward like many people believe he can, watch out. And I'm not going to give him the elite tag yet. You know how I work. We got to watch some film. We got to get some game tape under us of him getting some complete games, being a starter, where you're getting 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 and really a full season before I get up here and say, oh, that dude's elite. Now, you can be elite in year 1 as a full-time starter, but your boy's not going to jump on that bandwagon and say, oh, he's already elite without seeing 4 or 5 or 6 games. That's just not how I operate. I have to slow roll this thing, and I did the same thing with Henderson during his freshman year. Everybody said, oh, he's going to be elite this, elite that. There are massive flaws in his game. However, he also broke records during his freshman season. And he was a phenomenal running back, but there were some things where I was like, elite? I don't know. Break records? Sure, we got that. I'm going to do the same thing with James Peoples. It's just how I'm operated. I am never a guy that's going to hop on a bandwagon and say, oh, because of one game, because of what you did against Texas, it was week 1, your first start, but cool. But what you did there, that's the time I want to say that you're going to be elite. I can't do that. But James Peoples is not only the next in line, he's looking to be the next elite running back at Ohio State. And with Carlos Loughlin and Ryan Day and Brian Hartline and Coach Key, I think James Peoples has a massive opportunity in front of him to be a multi-year starting running back for the Buckeyes, to have a great first year as a Buckeye running back when you're getting a lot of play. Well, great first year getting consistent playing time for the Buckeyes. And also, you can use that in year number 2 year 3 as a Buckeye running back to show everybody this wasn't a one-hit wonder. I can do this back-to-back years, and if he does it in year 3, which would be a second year starting, he could be a Heisman candidate. It's going to be tough for a running back to get there. They saw from Ashton Genty this past year, and I think Peoples is a guy that if he plays the Buckeye style of running back like we're used to, absolutely he has an opportunity to do that. Even though you're next in line, that doesn't mean you're going to be elite. I do think James Peoples can be, and I think he will show everybody he's the right man to toe the rock for the Buckeyes in the fall. Arvel Reese also has some things he needs to show us in spring ball to give us a better handle about what he can be in the fall. And some of those things are tangible things I think he's even working on right now to make him a better Buckeye linebacker when the 2025 season kicks off. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. This week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Davis for more than 12 rebounds. I love how I can make my picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. When I win, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes. No waiting around. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank y'all for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. If you missed our instant reaction show after Ohio State's 69-61 loss to UCLA on the hardwood just a day ago, go back and check it out. It's on YouTube and wherever you get your fine podcast. Make sure you also follow and hit that notification button so you get notified every time a new show goes live. Arvel Reese is about to be Sonny Styles' running back. And Arvel Reese played some good ball in 2024 and was a great third linebacker for Ohio State when the Buckeyes wanted to go with a heavier defensive front. However, in year one, there were some things that I think were kind of holding him back from getting on the field a whole lot more. Also, I think some of those things that he was lacking a year ago, he could work on during spring ball to be a better Buckeye linebacker moving forward in the offseason, going further into fall camp, and when the season kicks off. One of those things I think Arvel Reese can work on right now as we speak is bulking up. And that's one, you may say, Jay, it's easier said than done. Yes, but you're at Ohio State. You have the best nutrition. You have the best facilities. You have the best X, Y, and Z to help you physically get ready for a football season, to help you physically recover for a practice or a workout, to help you in anything you want with your body or your mind. Ryan Day and these coaches are going to give it to you. Mickey Mariotti has been around for a very long time, and I think Mickey Mariotti did a great job last year getting Ohio State's bodies ready for a long, grilling 16-game season. Even at times thinking it's going to be 17 games, that's a lot. For when you go into playing at max 15 games or most season 13 games, it's a lot to say. Let's go a little bit further into a month. Go 10, 11 more days than normal while playing 2 or 3 extra games than normal. That's tough, man. That's ridiculously tough. And Ohio State did a great job physically preparing for the season, saving the players' bodies in the regular season for the long haul of the playoff, and it worked out to perfection. And Arvel Reese can learn from that, but also he can learn from Cody Simon a year ago when he was working with him and Ty Hamilton from last year. I know they're not in the same position room, but you look at Ty Hamilton, you look at Tyleik Williams, you look at Jack Sawyer, look at all these guys that were 4 and 5 year guys from last year's team. What did they have? They were physically prepared for battle every single week. Now, some of that does come with physically maturing. And while Arvel Reese is physically maturing, he does not have the 22 or 23 or 24-year-old body yet. What he does have is youth. What he does have is a whole lot of energy, and he has the best coaches and best nutrition staff you can find in the country. And as he needs to bulk up, they're also going to work with his agility, also going to work with his mental sharpness, with his mental toughness. They're able to work on so many different details for him when it comes to being a Buckeye linebacker. There was someone talking about Jeremiah Smith and Arvel Reese recently. I forget who said this. I don't want to say the incorrect host. But they were talking about last year when they saw Arvel Reese and Jeremiah Smith standing next to each other. And they were wowed at Jeremiah Smith and how big he was. And when I first heard that, I'm thinking, okay, cool. Hats off to Jeremiah Smith for being physically different. And then I looked a little bit deeper. I didn't want to go negative, but I'm thinking, man, think about what Arvel Reese can be when his body gets to being what a Buckeye linebacker's body is supposed to look like and physically being able to battle like a regular Buckeye linebacker. I try not to think negative about it because, yeah, it's easy to think about, well, Jeremiah's been next to a linebacker. Hey, man, that boy kind of big. What does that say with the linebacker? He's not the biggest, but, buddy, he could get big. He can get physically ready. And I noticed that about Ohio State's team a year ago, how they were physically more prepared for battle than normal. And as we were on the show in different off seasons discussing different things that kind of made us disgruntled about how certain teams in the South, Georgia and Alabama, had players that were bigger and stronger and faster than some of the Buckeye players on defense. Last year, what happened? Ohio State's bigger. It was faster. It was stronger than a lot of defenses in the country, which is exactly what Ohio State needs. One of the things I'm thinking about Arvel Reese getting bigger and just stronger and gaining the healthy weight that he needs to gain, I worry about the agility. I worry about the mental sharpness. I worry his ability to read and react to the rate he needs to. That goes back to Ohio State strength and conditioning. If you want to go to a school that has the best, go to Ohio State. Ohio State will give you what you need. The food, God, you even have Ryan Day recently advocating for the players to get better food during the playoff run. Duh. Isn't that what you want? Your coach should do the same thing the last national championship winning coach did at Ohio State, where Urban Meyer was talking on a podcast with Ryan Day. And Urban Meyer talked about how he looked out there in the 2014 playoff when they were preparing to play Alabama. And he talked about how there was the AD and the assistant to the AD, then the assistant to the assistant of the AD, then another assistant on down the line. And talked about how all these guys were here. The dean, then the assistant to the dean, the commissioner, the commissioner's assistant, and that person's assistant. Talking about how they had all these people here way on down the line. You got players, families that can't afford to go to a Big Ten title, go to play in the national semifinal to watch their son play, and then afford to go to the Natty. And Urban Meyer back then was very vocal, and as all the questions came out, he was discussing, we got to do better, we got to do better, we got to do better for 10 minutes, regardless of the question, saying we got to do better. Ryan Day did the same thing. Get the best food, get the best of everything. I think Arvel Reese can drastically work on that, but also just the instincts themselves. And that's going to come with playing football. And college football is so fast. For someone going from high school to college, and then going from being a second-year player, but also not playing as consistently as you wanted to maybe in your first year. When you get up there consistently, you think about, man, that thing is fast. That thing happens a whole lot quicker than I thought it was going to. I mean, we went through practice and I saw film, and all of a sudden I'm out there and it's bam, right in my face, and I don't know what to do. Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. That's where the three-time consistent All-American comes in and helps Arvel Reese with those instincts. And Sonny Styles, his running mate, helps him with learning in this look. When that guy is looking that way, this is going to happen. Arvel Reese may pop in and say, well, hold on. This is what the playbook says. I know what the playbook says. This is what my experience tells me. On this formation, when that guy is looking like this is going to happen. He's like, oh, and the light bulb starts to come on, and things start to become clearer for him. He doesn't have cloudy vision anymore, and he realizes, listen to the guys around me, follow the leader, which is my position coach, and things will be A-okay. It would also be okay if Ohio State had multiple lockdown corners in the fall. Is that realistic, though? I'll tell you next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I've missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Ohio State has a rich history of elite running backs. They also have a rich history of some pretty good corners as well. And you could think back for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. Go back 50 years. The cornerback play at Ohio State has been at a high level for a very long time. Denzel Burke is no longer at Ohio State. Next year, the projected starters at corner are Davison, Igbinosun, and Jermaine Matthews Jr. And with those two guys in mind, you're probably going to have Lorenzo Styles Jr. at nickel corner, and you have Devin Sanchez and Aaron Scott Jr. and Bryce West, who are always trying to get on the field. With all those guys in mind, let's not go with just two. Does Ohio State have a realistic opportunity to have two lockdown corners in the fall? Probably not. But I also don't think they need to have two lockdown corners. And I go say that because of the film that we have seen, the games we have watched, and just projecting how players are going to progress in the fall and be developed over the next few weeks and months. We got a better opportunity of getting a lockdown corner out of Jermaine Matthews Jr. over IGB. One guy has issues in penalties. I think it was the most penalized corner when it came to pass interference calls in the country. And I don't know how to handle those issues when those things didn't stop. When everybody and their mama knew you had issues keeping your hands off the player that you were guarding, almost like you had stickum on your hands, and you were still just grabbing on shirts and grabbing on jerseys and whatever happened, but it was like glue. Why don't right? You stick it. Referee right there in front of you. You're like, sir, why'd you call it? I had to call it. I'm gonna let this slide for 5 plays in a row. You think I'm gonna let it slide on the sixth? Absolutely not. I can't do that. Jermaine Matthews Jr. has some different traits. He has the ability to be that kind of corner. He also has that mindset where he's not going to back down from nobody. He's going to step up to every single challenge. He's not afraid of anything. And I think his level of physicality out there on the field is a big reason why he's going to figure out how to be right there in the receiver's hip pocket, know the receiver's move before he makes it. And he has a better opportunity than IGB does. In regards to the other guys, the Aaron Scott Jr., Devin Sanchez, Bryce West, those corners, I'm not going to put Lorenzo Styles in this conversation because I don't really see him being a lockdown corner either. The younger guys, it's hard because when you don't have consistent playing time, we don't have any film to put in front of us to say, we're going to make a massive statement about your play in the fall based off the film we've seen when we don't have that. Aaron Scott Jr. played a little bit. Bryce West played a little bit. Devin Sanchez ain't worn a Buckeye uniform yet in a fall football game. And so it's tough with Sanchez. It's going to take him out of this one. The other two can be, but I don't think they're going to start. And if they start, it's because, well, one of the top two guys fell. I think it's probably closer to be IGB over Jermaine Matthews Jr. I just can't get there yet. Probably only one. But remember, let's go back to a statement I made earlier, a few minutes ago on the show. The Buckeyes don't need to have two lockdown corners. We really don't even need to have one. Denzel Burke wasn't a lockdown corner this year. IGB wasn't a lockdown corner this year. But what did you find? In the second half of the season, when Ohio State coaches tweaked some things and re-engineered the defense, and I heard after the Oregon loss that Ohio State's defense took less calls into the game instead of having more calls, which drastically helped them moving forward into the season. Nobody could pass on them. Nobody. It turned into a no-fly zone. Without having a lockdown corner, you couldn't pass the ball. And it wasn't because of the corners. The corners were doing some great things. The Buckeyes are getting more of a pass rush, which helps guys that are struggling. And Davison, Igbinosun, and Denzel Burke, they were able to move things around and rotate the safeties to where sometimes you had Jordan Hancock back as a safety, Caleb Downs, or Lathan Ransom. So the picture was very cloudy and never consistent for the opposing quarterback. And as the players played more ball, got a better handle of the defense, as even Tim Walton decided, hey, we're going to pull you, Burke, at times and put Matthews Jr. in, or IGB, we're going to pull you a little bit and put Jermaine Matthews Jr. in. When they figured out the right buttons to push and who to pull and who to put in at the right time, what did it lead to? The Buckeyes not really having a true lockdown corner in the way that we describe that phrase, but they were still able to find a way to, as a team, make it very hard to pass the ball. And I think that's the most likely scenario. Is that Ohio State's team, the overall defense, the 11 guys on the field, do a great job of making it very difficult for opposing quarterbacks to throw the ball. One thing about Ohio State's defense that I'm still very amazed about is that Ohio State is losing 8 of their 11 starters from a year ago. The guys that are replacing them have played a lot of football in the scarlet and gray, but haven't been starters yet. And I don't really think it's going to be that kind of drop off that you expect when I think 8 of those guys are going to get drafted. I can't think of a guy that's not there that won't get drafted. I think all of them will be, which is a big thing for that unit of guys. But also for those guys coming up, it's huge too. Because you're able to look out here and say, I didn't play much. I am coming on the heels of a guy that was at Ohio State, played 3 or 4 or 5 years, showed everybody what they could do when they want to get drafted. And now you can have aspirations to do exactly what they're about to do. Not what they did in their Buckeye uniform, which is great. You can have aspirations to do that stuff too. But you can also have aspirations to go get drafted. Remember, Buckeyes defense last year, while they turned their defense into having a no-fly zone, they didn't really have a lockdown corner. So even if Ohio State doesn't have one lockdown corner this year, I think the defense will be just fine. Slump here or slump there. What did they do last year? They built depth. All of a sudden, you had 3 corners on the outside, 3 guys that can play outside corner consistently over the 2. Now, you also had Jordan Hancock, who didn't play outside corner. I think would have been a great outside corner if they ended up playing him there, but they didn't have to. Jermaine Matthews Jr. gained a lot of confidence last year and a lot of experience. Arvel Reese gained a lot of confidence last year and a lot of experience. While James Peoples didn't gain a lot of confidence via his playing time or play a lot of ball last year, I think he gained a lot of confidence while sitting back and watching Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson. All of the guys you talked about today, from James Peoples to Arvel Reese to Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews Jr., I believe all of them will have massive seasons in the fall. Being able to grow, being able to learn, being able to soak in all of the knowledge that they got from a year ago, what they're going to get over the next few weeks and months from their coaches, to allow the Buckeyes defense to remain elite. Yeah, it may not be what it was last year, which is a special season. But, buddy, that thing can be elite. I think it's going to be hard for him to run on Ohio State next year, too. I'm not going to say it's going to be as tough as it was this past year. I think it's going to be tough because of Arvel Reese. It's going to be hard to throw the ball in Ohio State next year, too, because of IGB and Matthews Jr. And if James Peoples gets the ability to tote the rock like we think he's going to or think he can, watch out, y'all. Peoples might be in line, and he might be moving forward to being the next elite running back in Ohio State history. Thank y'all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Don't wait for March. Be the most informed college basketball fan now. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on a Monday. We'll see you next time.